What on earth is going on at Chelsea? Chelsea Football Club used to be one of the most ruthless teams in world football. They didn't believe in long rebuilds. They didn't wait years for a project to work. They won. And they won fast. Managers came in with one job: deliver trophies. And if things didn't work, Chelsea didn't hesitate to make changes. It was brutal, but it worked. Premier League titles, Champions League nights, big personalities, big leaders, and a team that opponents genuinely feared. But the Chelsea we're seeing today feels completely different. Because instead of ruthless efficiency, this version of Chelsea feels like a giant experiment. Over the last few years, the club has spent an unbelievable amount of money. Hundreds and hundreds of millions. In fact, the spending has pushed past the billion-pound mark. And yet, despite all that investment, one question keeps coming back again and again. What exactly are Chelsea building? Because this doesn't look like a normal rebuild. It looks like a gamble. Instead of buying proven stars in their prime, Chelsea invested heavily in potential. Young players, raw talent, footballers with huge upside, but very little experience at the very top level. Long contracts were handed out, sometimes 7-8 years. And while that might sound like long-term planning, it also carries enormous risk. Because young teams rarely succeed immediately. They're inconsistent. One week they look brilliant, fast, exciting, full of energy. The next week they look completely lost. And that inconsistency is exactly what Chelsea fans have been watching. Some performances suggest the future could be bright. Others raise serious questions about whether the plan actually makes sense. Because talent alone doesn't win trophies. Experience matters. Leadership matters. And this Chelsea squad is still searching for both. Look at the great Chelsea teams of the past. Players like Didier Drogba, Frank Lampard, John Terry. Those teams had
a mentality, a presence that made opponents uncomfortable before the match even started. But today's Chelsea feels very different. Instead of a hardened core of leaders, there's a group of young players still trying to find their place in elite football. And that's incredibly difficult when the environment around them keeps changing. Managers have come and gone. Different ideas, different tactics, different expectations. For young players trying to develop, that kind of instability can slow everything down. Confidence becomes fragile. Momentum disappears. And suddenly potential starts to feel like pressure. Because when a club spends this much money, the expectations are enormous. Every signing is watched closely. Every performance is analyzed. Every mistake is magnified. And pressure like that can crush even the most talented players. There's also another problem: identity. For years, Chelsea had a clear football identity. Strong defensively, dangerous in transition, physically dominant, mentally tough. Now, it's harder to define exactly what this team represents on the pitch. Are they a possession team? A counter-attacking side? A high-pressing squad? Sometimes it looks like all of those things. Other times it looks like none of them. And when a team doesn't have a clear identity, consistency becomes almost impossible. The truth is, Chelsea's strategy could still work in the long run. If these young players grow together, if the club sticks with the right manager, if the system becomes clear, then Chelsea could eventually build something extremely powerful. A young core entering their prime at the same time. But football history is full of ambitious projects that never reach that point. Because development isn't guaranteed. Confidence can disappear. Injuries can happen. Managers can change again. And if that happens, this massive spending spree could be remembered very differently. Instead of a visionary rebuild, it could become one of the most expensive experiments. It could become one of the most expensive experiments football has ever seen. Chelsea used to terrify the Premier League. Now, the club is trying to reinvent itself completely. The question is whether this new strategy will create the next great Chelsea dynasty, or whether it will become a cautionary tale about spending, patience, and the risks of building a team almost entirely on potential. Because right now, one thing is clear: Chelsea are changing, but nobody truly knows what they are changing into. And that uncertainty might be the most fascinating story in English football today. So the real question is this. Do you think Chelsea's long-term project will succeed? Or is this billion-pound rebuild heading for disaster? Let me know what you think.